Well, good morning. It's been a minute since I've made a video, but I went and I'm trying to get a few things done on this truck. This is the Scout with a SCX-10-2 Honcho stuck underneath. You see those are the single piece axle housings, the AR-44s. Everything is pretty stock. We did put some steel transmission gears in, and I had to fit a different wheelbase because the wheelbase on this is a little bit shorter than the Honcho was. You can see that the sliders are a little bit different. I actually have some Wordy made body capture sliders, but you can see that the slider mounts are actually flipped, and I did trim off the radio box to get things to fit. All the electronics are under the hood right here, which aside from this Castle BEC and a Holmes Hobbies 35 turn motor, it's pretty stock. You can see I've done an adapter for the star plug, the T plug, or Dean's plug if you want to call it, to XT60s. It has magnet mounts that hold on the hood. Now the Velcro is just there from the old setup we had. There's no Velcro underneath the hood of the truck at all. But you can see the AE5L right there. A little bit of wiring. There's a little bit more to clean up in here for the lights. And I have not mounted the body to the chassis. You can see there's a big fix right here, and then also in this corner. So I've got to really lightly trail this truck to keep this body going for the next few months. So here's the issue I had. The front end was really bouncy. I would drop this thing and it would bounce along like this. And in looking, I just looked at it this morning and realized that the shocks had actually popped. Both front shocks had actually popped the bottom caps off. So I thought about it, and I was going to buy some springs, but then I realized I had some of these. These are the part of the swag bag we got at Axialfest. They're just CKRC, real simple spring pins. Now I've already done the other side and used half a spring. You can see that half a spring right there is going to be for the driver's side that I'm putting on. And basically what happens is I'll be right back and show you. I'm going to tear the shock apart really fast and I'll show you how I mount the spring. Alright, so here's basically what happens. The spring is going to go over this shaft. And then it's going to go back in the body of the shock. Sorry if my big hands were in the way of the camera here. But basically the shaft will just go back in the shock. And what it's doing is kind of replacing the dampening fluid. So if I had an extra hand, well, I can actually do it here. I can actually pull this down just a little bit, and it has some opposing spring rate to the actual spring that goes on the outside. So I'll get that back together, and then I'll compress it really quick to show you how it looks. So there's the shock put back together again. Now before, obviously there was no fluid in it because the cap was loose, but it was crazy springy on this heavy spring. Now I didn't change the spring rate when I installed the shocks on this truck. I left the firm ones in the front and the softer ones in the rear. The front of this truck is pretty freaking heavy. I mean, I've got the steel Wordy made bumper on here, which adds a little bit of weight. But again, I also have all the electronics and the battery and the weight of this steel cage, the race cage that it's adjoined to, and everything else that's in there. Plus transmission, driver, everything else. There's a lot of weight on the front of this thing. So I left the heavy springs under the front. Now that kind of led to the issue of the caps popping off the bottom of these shocks. They are still plastic shocks. I don't blame the manufacturer for that. The plastic shocks are actually intended for something lighter like the Honcho body or the new deadbolt that they come on also. The old SCX-10-2, you know, they're meant for a lighter vehicle, whereas this is gotta weigh at least maybe twice as much as the stock Honcho did. So yeah, that's what I've done. I will be getting to the rear here soon. I have some things to do today, so we'll get this done. But you can see that this has, rather than just internal dampening, I did put a few drops of fluid in there just to keep it wet, but it's a lot smoother as it has that opposing spring rate and it bottoms out. You can actually see it, it'll pull out a little bit further with that spring in there. So that'll help it in the weight in the front. Now these shocks probably won't last much longer under this truck, but again, this truck isn't going to last much longer than the next Axialfest. After this, the entire upper cage and body is going to come off, and then we'll scavenge all the scale goods and the driver and whatever else we need in there. Maybe even the dash. Dash isn't, well, no, we're going to leave a dash in there. Dash is a pretty cool cluster of stuff. I've got to kind of clean up this dash a little bit, put some backing on there. But yeah, it's going to make it to the next Axialfest. Then we'll take everything out that we need, hang up this old cage, and this old body. This poor old body is so beat, it's brittle. I'm afraid to roll it over or impact it too hard or anything because it may shatter in some spots. Like I said, I have these fixes here that will hopefully last, you know, the next couple months. I'm going to trail it very lightly and then have its last hurrah at Axialfest 2018. So that's what I've done lately on the Scout. Like I said, sometimes you have some things around that really help out more than what they're actually intended to be. And those springs are a very big help. We're going to see how well this feels on the front. Like I said before, when I would drop the truck, it would bounce for quite a while. But the rear isn't too bad. The rear actually dampens pretty good because it's obviously lighter. And it's resting on those lighter springs. But if I want to get a little bit lower ride height, I might throw those half springs back in those rear shocks. So thanks for listening, and we'll check you later. Look at that. No longer bounces like a poorly built lowrider.